Hello, I'm Amir Fassihi. I'm the founder and CEO of Amnion Life. Amnion Life has been in business for about 3 years now. We have an international team of subject matter experts here in the US. Mostly our regulatory business development is here. We've developed our R&D facility to build our device actually in Serbia. Our company's mission is to develop novel devices, innovative devices, particularly for to decrease mortality and complications in preterm infants. We have a number of products in the pipeline that we're working on. The one that is closest that we've been working on the most is the AmnioBed Golden Hour that goes into the labor and delivery units, replaces the radiant warmer and polyethylene wraps for these infants. And then you have the AmnioBed 24-hour that goes into the NICU, and then the artificial placenta, which is an ECMO machine. And then we have other products that we've been on our radar that we're going to be working on developing down the line. So what is the issue and the problem here? Per March of Dimes, premature birth is the #1 cause of death of babies in the United States. Per World Health Organization, is the #1 cause of children's death globally, and that really boggled my mind, because you think of an infectious disease as the #1 cause of global death in children, but complications of preterm birth is up there. And in the US, we've had significant increase in premature births in the last 25 years. Today, a preemie is born every minute. And many of the premature infants that survive the NICU term, especially the extreme preterm and very preterm that we are trying to address, leave the hospital with lifelong complications, brain hemorrhages that lead to neurodevelopmental disorders, intellectual disabilities, lung issues, ocular issues, auditory issues. Why is that? #1 reason is that preterm infants are more like cold-blooded animals than warm-blooded animals. When they're born very early in extreme preterm, they don't have thermal regulation mechanism, and they don't have mechanism to keep that heat inside. They have very thin subcutaneous fat for instillation. Their skin is very thin. It's permeable to water, so they get evaporative water loss together with evaporative heat loss. They don't have shivering mechanism. They don't need it at that age, gestational age. They don't have brown fat that's deposited in the term infants that produces heat. So these infants, as soon as they're born born into a very hostile environment, and their temperature drops as the outside temperature drops. And unfortunately, you have, per a major Kaiser report in 2008, 25 to 78% of preterm infants that born less than 1,500 grams of very preterm and extreme preterm have an episode of hypothermia within 60 minutes of life, sometimes as soon as 5 minutes of life. And this is called transitional hyperthermia. This is an episode of hypothermia before they go to the NICU, and that's on average is about 50% in the very preterm infants. And that's just really mind-boggling numbers, because each episode of hypothermia, core temperature dropping more than degrees, is associated directly with everything from mild intellectual disability to cerebral palsy to all kinds of calamities, sepsis, increased rate of death within 72 hours, and prolonged hospital stays that in the extreme preterms, 110 days in the hospital at average of $5,000 to $8,000 a day. So what is our solution with this problem with hypothermia is the AmnioBed. AmnioBed is a patent-protected proprietary device that provides a controlled bath environment, recreating the in-womb environment that these infants are more accustomed to. It creates a synthetic amniotic fluid bath. The fluid in the machine is created by the machine. It's purified water that mixed with a dose of concentrate amniotic crystalloid solution, which is very much like Ringer's solution. It's just minerals and electrolytes, but matches the pH and osmolality of the amniotic fluid as opposed to what we have right now. And the fluid in there is continuously monitored. The infant doesn't wear a diaper. If the stool detected if their stool in the fluid is detected, it's automatically flushed. And in the initial model, the infant's going to be there for 16 minutes, but then in the later models, when we go into the NICU, we were hoping for 24 hours and then weeks until they're more accustomed for the outside world. The benefits of this is we want to reduce environmental heat loss. Environmental heat loss is calorie loss that decreases their rate of growth in the NICU. Thus, you're having these long stays in the NICU of weeks and weeks, 50 to 110 days. Reducing environmental water loss, which is significant in these infants. And they have all kinds of skin issues as well, that's from drying, scaling, breakdown that leads to sepsis. So we want to improve all that. But more than anything, we want to be agent of change in the NICU. The NICU has not had innovation for a long time. The current technology we'll get to is more than 100 years old. It was developed in the late 19th century in Paris, 1886, the first incubator. But since then, it's really a mattress with heating elements and with more bells and whistles and computerized. But still, we're putting these preterm infants into an air humidified environment where their body is not accustomed for that. They need to be more in a fluid environment. So we've come a long way since starting the company. We've had multiple seed rounds. We've had the prototype built. The business model is based on a combination of capital equipment sales or lease option and a daily use, which the daily use is for the covers, the cartridges for the fluid, the maintenance, everything that goes with it. And then as far as the future sales and EBITDA projections, we're projecting with the 1,400 units operating in the US and another 2,000 rest of the world, that would be estimated about $150 million in revenue and $70 million in EBIT. And that would, with a 10 times, 15 times valuation for the EBIT, that would be could be a $500 million to $1 billion exit for the company. We're currently raising $500,000 on Red Crow. This will be in the 2020. We have the prototype. We've tested it, but we need to do more all the official testing, the verifications for the FDA, the preclinical safety testings. In 2021, we'll be raising for the clinical trials, and in 2020, about $5 to $8 million for the commercialization. The story began 6 years ago. I'm a radiologist by training, and we went to London, visited a cousin there, and we had heard that they had a baby that was born very early and had spent weeks and weeks in the NICU. And family knew about this, but we didn't know the extent of it and how long and what the outcome was. But when we saw the little girl, she had developed significant neurodevelopmental and ocular injuries that needed daily assistance. And this was it was very heart-reckoning for us to see that in the family, but also just the amount of pressure emotionally, financially for the family was significant. And 3 weeks later on the same trip, I had a dream that these infants need to be in a fluid environment to be more comfortable. And that has led me down to this path of where we're seeing today. If you're interested in the real money or today's money, please visit us on Red Crow. We will appreciate your help, and I think we're going to be doing well, hopefully. Thank you.
Quick question.
Yes.
I know we're just about out of time. How are you going to do market penetration? There are so many products out there. Obviously, yours is very unique. You have intellectual property, but I simply don't understand with all these other competitors, how are you going to penetrate?
The initial product, the Amnion Golden Hour, the competitor is the radiant warmer and the plastic wrap the infants go into. Despite the best effort we have, despite the best technology right now, 50% of those infants have hypothermia within the first hour. So if we can show that we can reduce that, that is our way to get into the market. I don't think there's a hospital or a parent would be willing to have their baby risk a 50% chance of having, significant negative outcome if there is an option that can significantly eliminate that chance of the hypothermia in the first hour or so.
I think one last quick question.
Hi. So I think great problem to solve, very important to do it. And over at Kaiser Permanente, we do spend a lot of time and energy working to decrease hypothermia due to transition. My question is whenever you have fluid-borne systems, there is a potential for nosocomial infection and a bacterial, bacteria to proliferate, Ralstonia, other Pseudomonas, other things. How have we worked on eliminating that possibility?
So our machine has we're building a disinfection cycle that has a disinfectant cartridge that goes in that cleans the whole thing out, and also all the plastics come in sterile for us. So it's that we're using the same standards for cleaning a dialysis machine in this. So if we can have a safe machine in dialysis, we can do the same thing here.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.